Hi everybody, thanks for joining me this evening. My name is Ernie Noy and I'm the owner and operator of Global Wines Brew on Premise here in Prince Edward Island, Canada. What I want to take the next few minutes to do is show you what we do as a brew on premise facility here and elsewhere in Canada and the US, wherever you're watching this, in making homemade wine. I'll go over what I do, the additive stage from a customer point of view, from picking out the kit, different style of wine, to coming back to bottle it. Perry is here to help me out with this, and if he's got some questions along the way, we'll ask hopefully questions that you may have at home. So, here we go. What it is again, they're wine that we make from kits. The supplier that I deal with here on the island, on Prince Edward Island, is Global Vintners Vine Co. They carry many different brands and styles of wine under them, and I carry most of them in my store. So each kit yields 30 bottles of wine, which is 23 liters. There's different sizes of kits, different price points, different denominations, and what I mean by that is you're basically buying the denomination of juice. We carry 7.5 liters, they go to 10 liters, 12 liters, 16 liters, and 18 liters. And that's how the price points vary. So the more juice that you're buying, the less water that's added to bring it up to that 30 bottle mark. So the nicer, fuller style of a wine that it is. Then the opposite, the smaller of the denomination of juice that you buy, the more water that's added, and less price points. So here on Prince Edward Island, for a price point comparison, these are the smallest kits again that I sell. The customer does these here for about $4.50, $4.60 a bottle. Liquor store, those are your $8 to $10 bottles of wine. My main sellers here are the 10-liter kits, Cheeky Monkey, which I'll show you later, and the Kenridge as well. Customer does these here on the island again for about $5 a bottle. Liquor store, these are your $12 to $15 bottles.
Right, so you're under 50% of the retail.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's a third of the cost in most cases. Right. And as I said, you're buying the denomination. So these are the largest kits that I sell, and these come with the grape skins for the red juice. And for any red wine drinker out there, if you've never had a kit that was made with grape skins, I strongly recommend it. What the grape skins is, Perry, is it's an actual grape skin pack that will ferment in the juice during the primary fermentation, which is 7 to 10 days, however long that you leave it in. So it's releasing a lot more tannins, it's a lot more flavorful, it's a lot more robust. It's really nice for any style of red. So if you are a red drinker, you're already saving quite a bit of money by doing it on premise or doing it at home yourself. Go the extra step, try one with the grape skins. You get what you pay for basically in these kind of facilities. So that's how it works for the size-wise and the price points of the kit. So the customer comes in, if they don't know what style they like or if they haven't had any stuff in the past, again, Global Vintners Vine Co. carries many different varietals: Pinot Grigio, Pinot Noir, Cabernet Sauvignon, fruit wines, which are the Niagara Mist sweet wines as well. So there's a whole list of a selection. And your local brew on premise people will help you with that selection as well, as I do here. Another thing now, again, our main business is we do it here on the customer for a few reasons. It's fun, it's easy, and it's inexpensive. Where we heard that before, Perry?
Yeah, I don't know where that is.
You think you thought that for the commercial.
Yeah.
And again, the price points, you just can't beat it. It's and you're getting a good quality wine. Like again, we've been here for a few years. Vine Co. has been on the market for a number of years. The brands, we stand beside our brands. I do, and I know my supplier, and they stand by the brands as well. Tried, tested, and true. So like I said, we mainly are a brew on premise, but all of your brew on premise facilities will carry equipment that the home person can do. And basically what that is, it's a 17-piece kit or something similar to like this that might be in another store. Customer purchases that, takes it home, and then they're just buying the kit after that. And most places will supply you with the knowledge if you didn't know how to do it. They all carry instructions in them, easy to follow instructions is basically what it is. So that's all it is to picking it out. The customer first comes in and they choose their style of wine. As a brew on premise, we would ring it in, they would pay for it, and then we come back and we set it. It's pretty simple to make wine. Time, temperature is very important, right. And in your cleaning and sanitizing. You do a few steps in between. The 28 to 45 days basically is how long it takes to make a kit. Sorry, I forgot that out there. Your smaller kits up to your 10 liters, they're usually about 28 days to make. When you get up to 12, 16, and 18 liters, they're more juice, more style of wine, so they take a little longer to ferment it.
Right.
what we're going to do here is a 16-liter kit. Legacy brand is one of my favorite brands. Now, for your brew on premise, wherever you're watching this from, there's some things that the customer needs to do for legal reasons. They need to sprinkle the yeast and they need to come back and bottle it. And then I do, and we do everything else in between, and I'll show you that there. So this is a kit that I purchased, so I'm going to be able to sprinkle the yeast, and I will show you how we set it. So when the customer comes back to any room or where they're at, we just get everything out in the open and ready to go. Package,
So this is everything you need, right? Everything's in that box other than the water.
Everything is in the box except for the water, yeah. Now, different kits will come with different things. I'll get into that in a little bit. But for the most part, they come with the main juice. Again, this is a 16-liter juice, so this is a bigger pack, larger style of wine, so there's going to be less water added to this one. So, we just get out here, everything ready to go. They all do come with yeast, obviously, bentonite, I'll get into this stuff later, bentonite, potassium sorbate, potassium metabisulfite, chitosan, and kysosol. They all come with that stuff. Now, these are not ingredients of wine, they're called additives. If you're not familiar with the process, or maybe you've been making wine for years and whatnot, some of this stuff might get boring to you, but I'll just explain it as if you're like Perry.
Yeah,
You don't really have a clue, eh?
Very
Perry?
interested and know nothing.
Sure. So yeah, these are not ingredients of wine, they're called additives. The wine is basically, all you need really is yeast and the sugar to eat the yeast to turn it into alcohol. These are basically used to as antioxidants to help prevent spoilage, to clear wines, to help stop the fermentation process and whatnot. Wine would eventually do that on its own anyway. As a brew on premise, we use these. Customers who do it at home, excuse me, a lot of them will have the privilege of having many kits on the go, so they may not use some of that stuff. Especially for clearing, they would just let it sit. It will eventually, nature would take its course and it would clear and turn into wine and it'd be fine like that. But again, for the brew on premise, we are using this stuff here. So all we need right now is the yeast, obviously, and we're going to be using bentonite as well. And we put the oak packs, or I put the oak packs in at this time. Now, if you're new to the making wine and you're doing this at home, I recommend going by the instructions, and I'll let you know now, I do not go by the instructions. I have my own system, and many people at home probably have their own different systems as well. If you're just starting on a Vineco kit and you've been doing other brands before, I recommend just stick with the way that you've been making it, right? They're basically all the same. Not the same quality, sorry, but they're basically to make it just stick with
The process is the same.
the process is basically the same. Again, I don't follow the Vineco instructions, and I'll make a note to you as we go along, like that. So I guess the first one being is, I put my oak in now. You can pour this right in the container, or some people have a sock or whatnot to put it in, but I just pour it right in. So we start with our, it's called primary fermenter. Me here, I use bags, again, for sanitizing reasons and for help cleaning.
So that's just a liner though.
It's just a specific food grade plastic liner. So I'm just putting everything here. So this also has dried elderberries as well. That's what this white pack is, as well as that oak. So,
Cool.
now look at this. My two best customers, my two favorite people are here. Well, they're not really customers. I like to keep everything covered, obviously, with the fruit flies and other bacteria that may build up, and especially as we do this in commercial, you can't be too careful. As I mentioned with winemaking, you know, the time, the temperature, and cleaning and sanitizing, very important. So as I'm in between doing stuff, I just try to keep everything covered up as much as possible. So we got that stuff in, so now I'm just going to add my juice. So it's usually got some sediment on the bottom, so I just like so. Try to get over here. Just want to keep things covered up. So you want to get out all the juice as much as you can, so you can just rinse it out.
So that's actually that's more than half of the product.
Oh yeah,
is
you're
original
yielding,
is juice, right?
You're yielding 23
Yeah,
grams,
yeah.
So
Yeah.
So I'm just putting everything in there. So again, covering it up. Get rid of this. So the next thing I'm going to put in is my bentonite. I guess the only other thing that you're putting in now is the bentonite and the yeast that go in right from the get-go.
Right.
So the bentonite, we mix it with hot water. In the instructions, I think it said you may have to boil it and leave it sit for 10 minutes. That's one of the things that I don't do. I just mix it with hot tap water. And this is just a fining agent, clearing agent, or as it's fermentating, it'll help clear it later in the process. The chitosan and the chysosol, they do the same thing, but they do it basically after the fermentation process. So this is during the fermentation process, and the rest is for later.
So this is just to make it clear faster? Is that what's up there? Rather than letting it sit like for
No,
months?
well, yeah, that as well. It helps it clear later again.
Right.
So just give that a bit of stir around. So here in my brew on premise, again, we pride ourselves on our wine, and we try to give the best quality wine that we can to the customer. I use a reverse osmosis water filtration system. You know, a lot of your cities or towns, I'm not sure what the water quality is. You may be able to use it, you may not. You can buy bottled water. So, but again, we give the best quality wine, and so we have quality water. So it's a 3-filter system. I don't know exactly how it works.
Right.
It's just a reverse osmosis water. So I'm going to get that right now, and I'm going to top that up. Again, when I mentioned earlier about time and temperature, the temperature of the water that this is going to go into, I have it in my warm room. It's already pre-warm. If I was taking it from the hose, you might have a thermometer here. You'd want it at least 22 degrees. 22 to 26 degrees, I think that's what the instructions may say. I go 24 to 25 degrees. I kind of make it a little bit smaller, and I know it's going to work. If it's too cold, the fermentation process may not start. If it's too hot, it may burn out. It just may not. So, stick with your 24, 25 degrees. Basically, just run it and get the temperature there, and then you can add it to. But again, I already know the temperature for this, so I'm going to add this in here. Pour that in. Most buckets have a gauge on the side, so you can see how much you're putting into it.
So, Arnie, if this was a customer's project, you would still do all of this work,
I do all of this, right here. So again, that's why it's more convenient for the customer. A lot of people like doing it at home. But people are busy. Time gets in the way.
And it's a matter of space too, right?
And it's a matter of space.
You need a temperature control.
And it's guaranteed. I, and as I'm sure as many other people, owners of brew on premise, I guarantee. Again, I stand by this product, and I've done many in the process, and I don't think any have not turned out. Knock on wood, but we stand by it. So you don't have that guarantee at home if it goes wrong.
Yeah, if it goes sideways, then it's done. Yeah.
So. Now, again, I'm clean. This is already pre-sanitized and whatnot. Before I put the yeast, I just give it a little stir, just to mix the water around with the juice. Some people let it sit in. So now, we're going to talk just a second, not too much, about specific gravity, because I can do another video on this alone, and I may do that. Specific gravity is just basically measuring the process throughout the wine of it turning into alcohol. So what it does, it basically measures the sugar in the water level, right? So I'm going to put it in here now, and I'm not going to get too much into it. I'll basically just color code it for you and show you where it's at and give you a few examples. But again, I'll do another one. And I know I don't do a lot of hydrometer readings here. Again, my room has been the same temperature since I opened. The process is all the same, but you don't always have to do what I do. I guarantee, so it's not. So all we're doing here is just putting it in, giving it a little spin. So right now, if you just notice, again, I'm not going to get into the numbers and the specifics of it, because again, if you're not into winemaking, it can be quite confusing. This is actually the only confusing part of winemaking. The rest is pretty simple. But when it's done, we're going to want it to have it around that red level, under 1.00. Right now, it's at there because there's more sugar in this juice right now. So when I put in my yeast, throughout the first 10 days in the fermentation process, as the yeast is eating the sugar and turning it into alcohol and turning it into carbon dioxide, which is let off, it will sink, because it's getting lighter. So, people, if they're doing it at home, they would chart that number or whatnot, but again, I'm not going to get into too much of the specifics. Just, kind of know where it is now. In a few minutes, I'll show you what it's like after. So, all we're doing now is going to start the fermentation process, basically, and that's adding the yeast.
Right.
This is what the customer would do.
So yeah, this is what
So
the
this
customer-
is what the customer would do, yeah.
and this is because of legal
Yep.
ramifications
Yeah,
of brewing
it's basically,
alcohol.
it's their wine, right? It's the
Yeah.
customer's wine.
Yeah.
They're basically just paying us, the brew on premise, to
Yeah.
make it for them. So they start the process and they end the process and we do everything else in
Right.
between. And then all this is sprinkling it over. I recommend just letting it sit and settle, you know.
Right.
Some people may stir it, you know, whatnot like that, but.
room now.
This
Is that
the
right,
warm
Ernie?
room, the fermentation room.
Yep. Oh yeah.
And as you can tell, it's warm back here.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the warm room, sure. So after 10 days, which is this one, it's time for racking today, what we call racking. And racking is basically just a fancy wine name for transferring from one container to another. Using any type of hose or auto siphon hose is what I use.
So Ernie, does this helps out with the sediment stuff? Because you mentioned there would be some sediment, right?
Yeah,
in
so this,
the
like I
primary
said, yep.
fermenter there.
Yeah, so this is the first racking, so this will have the most sediment on the bottom, which I'll
Right.
show you here. But basically, again, all racking is I'm just starting my siphon and putting it in here. So I want to show you I'm going to cover this up again, as I said. I try to cover it and keep this covered as much as possible. Especially we're shooting this here in August, which is pretty peak for, or no, I guess we're September. Pretty peak for fruit fly season. So, so I'm going to do a hydrometer reading again. So this should be totally pretty much fermented out, right? This is the primary fermentation, the first stage. So if you recall when we did it before we added the yeast, I think it was down in the green or whatnot like that. So now it should be up near the red or even in the red. And we just again give it a spin.
Yeah. See if I can find it with the camera here. Where is it? There it is. There it is.
Okay. And I'm not going to get into the specifics of the numbers
Yeah.
and whatnot. So there you go. You can tell there that the yeast has eaten the sugar and the hydrometer dropped and it's in the parts. So it is basically wine now. It still will ferment a little bit more in the secondary fermentation, but for the most part, it's done and it should be done. So if you were, if it was not done, if it was still down to the green or the white or it wasn't fermented out, you just basically leave it a little bit longer. Then I will go to the additive stage, which is right here, which is what we're going to do.
Right. So this is the airlock, the little unit on the top here?
This is the airlock, yeah. So this is called a bung airlock, and what I have in here is a mixture of water and potassium metabisulfite. You can use just water as well.
Yeah.
I just use a mixture, it doesn't evaporate as quick. But basically what that's doing, Perry, it's letting the gas escape, but not letting any air come in, right? Again, you can use it in there, you know, people vary.
Yeah.
So the additive stage. So this is where I do it quite a bit different than it has in the Vineco instructions. I think in the instructions it says to do this in the course of 3 or 4 days between the sorbate, the metabisulfite, and the chitosan and the chysosol. I do mine within the span of 4 or 5 minutes. Again, follow the instructions at first, or if you got your own, do it that way. So basically all I'm doing here is I'm going to rack it again.
Okay.
Some guys at home may do it right in there. Or I know some guys do it right in there, the additive stage, but I prefer to put it in another container because every time you rack it, you're leaving a little bit more sediment on the bottom.
Right.
And obviously the less sediment in the end, it's better. And it's easier on your filtration system and whatnot like that. So again, I'm just covering that, covering this here. So at this stage, I put in my potassium sorbate and potassium metabisulfite. I put them in together at the same time. Again, that varies depending on.
So Ernie, how many days has this unit been in the?
This is a 4-week kit. So this has been 24 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just about ready to bottle.
It's
Another
pretty
4 or
much
5 days.
after this, it sits for a few more days, then filter and then bottle. Now a larger kit, like an 18-liter kit, obviously it would be longer. You wouldn't do that in 24 days. It's 30 days, I do believe, or 36 days, however it is.
Okay.
But what I'm doing here, Perry, is I pour these in right now, the sorbates. Again, these are the antioxidants, help prevent spoilage, help stop re-fermentation, things like that. And I just put that in before I start my additives. Now, what's very important, again, there are some differences the way people do them, but you have to do these in order. This is the defining agents, clearing agents, the chitosan and the chysosol.
Right.
Same as the bentonite, we put the bentonite in first during fermentation. Fermentation is over now. We could have done another hydrometer reading and it would have showed basically the same as that. So the fermentation is done, so we do these fining agents. Very important, the chysosol before the chitosan, whether you do it in the span of a couple minutes like I do, or if you do it over the course of a few weeks. So we'll let those filter out. So this is the end of the first stage. So this is where we're going to have the most sediment.
Right.
But let me get this covered up first again, and then.
So that only took a few minutes, Ernie?
Yeah, not
4 or 5
about
minutes maybe?
4 or 5 minutes. Cover that up.
And
So again, I'll just set that
the
aside.
airlock.
That's the airlock. And now obviously it's still cloudy, it's
Right.
just been moved around and whatnot, but that'll settle and clear later. It's not ready for balling for quite a while.
Yeah.
So you can peek in there, Perry. So that's what we call sediment, leaves
Right,
or
that's what's
whatnot.
left over.
That's what the yeast has eaten and settled
Right.
everything down.
Right.
So that's quite a bit because again, it's the first stage fermentation.
Right.
And then, so you'll see this, again, this is the additive stage, this is the one that's done 2 weeks after this.
Right.
It'll still have some sediment there too, but not as much. Again, at home, I use a drill and an agitation rod, which a lot of people I know do, a lot of my customers do, but people use a spoon at home, just kind of give it a good mixing around. As I said earlier, I do mine in the course of 4 or 5 minutes. There's various descriptions where you should be stirring for an hour. I've never heard of degassing for an hour. I would never do it for an hour. And I want to talk a little bit more about cleaning and sanitizing. And obviously because I do this as a business, it's very, very important, but it should be important to you at home as well. So my process that I use for cleaning, anytime you move a product, you're racking it from one container to another, you should always be cleaning it, cleaning your hoses and cleaning them properly. What I use here is I use a chloroclean first, and then I use a mixture of potassium metabisulfite, cleaning to sanitize it. I know some people at home may not even do anything. I wouldn't recommend that. Some only use the pink stuff, some only use the white stuff. But again, I would recommend both to clean and to properly sanitize.
What does